in many exorcisms, priests have recorded that as they're exorcising demons, they speak to the power of Mary's intercession.
Welcome back to GodNod. My name is Casey, and today we have joining us Dr. Mark Miravalle, and he's here to help shed some light on this newest horror movie release called Unholy. Now, I'm sure some of you have seen the ads and trailers that have been released for this movie. In case you have not heard about it, this movie, what it's about, it says that it's about this young girl named Alice. She's a young hearing impaired girl who, after a supposed visitation from the Virgin Mary, is inexplicably able to hear, speak, and heal the sick. As word spreads and people from near and far flock to witness her miracles, a disgraced journalist hoping to revive his career visits the small New England town to investigate. When terrifying events begin to happen all around, he starts to question if these phenomena are the works of the Virgin Mary or something much more sinister. Now, this little description of the movie only portrays very little of what the actual trailer shows in the movie, and we just recently watched the trailer, and so I guess my first question, Dr. Miravalle, is just what is your first thoughts when watching this trailer?
Yeah, Casey, my first thoughts are that if someone wanted to discredit, undermine the authenticity, respect, reverence of both an authentic Marian apparition, or what we call in the church Marian consecration, where someone gives themselves to Our Lady to allow her, to allow the Blessed Virgin to intercede, to keep us true to our baptismal promises to Jesus, that you couldn't do a better job of undermining it, of giving negative emotional, psychological, visual, intellectual concepts of that than this trailer. And of course, the trailer is out now, but you know, I would say, frankly, you don't need to drink all the poison to realize that it's poison. It's a bit like pornography, right? You don't have to see all of it. 2 minutes of pornography tells you what the theme is, and especially when the authors are telling you this is our main theme. So I think it's a vile, without any judgment of heart of the individuals doing it, a vile, blasphemous misrepresentation of what authentically happens when the Mother of Jesus comes to humanity to bring grace and peace and healing and authentic conversion to unite people to Jesus.
Mm-hmm. And in the trailer, you know, it kind of shows the theme of the movie, but then even on the front cover of the movie, it says, "Be careful who you pray to." What do you think that line is trying to imply? Right,
and you know, and I think in many ways, one great attribute of the younger generation, so to speak, is you're not easily manipulated. You've perhaps grown up in an atmosphere you have to judge for yourself. And I think that's a great credit to the younger generation. And I would say exercise that gift with this, because it's a manipulation. It's obvious. I mean, it's not like they show a clip of Satan or New Age, and then one is Mary, and you get a multiple choice. It's all about a supposed Marian apparition bringing forth real fruits of healings, several healings, and then that's all false. It's all Satan, and therefore that's the lens, that's the context in which you have to see and understand their kind of bumper sticker phrase, "Be careful who you pray to." Again, if you were trying to undermine Marian apparitions, I'm not sure you could do a better thematic job than what this movie portrays in its trailer.
Right. Just from watching the movie, I just think back to like my high school self, and I'm thinking, if I saw this trailer, I think I would start having doubts of like, oh no, should I be asking for Mary's intercession? Like, am I doing something wrong by asking her to pray for me? So can you maybe just speak on that, of like the people just from watching this trailer, or even just hearing about this, like, what do we do with that little ounce of doubt that the evil one is trying to give us?
Right. Well, you know, our faith is always being tested, And we have the assurance that there's always grace. The more the testing, the more there's grace. So surely Satan is the father of lies. He's the ape of God, which means he doesn't create himself, he mimics. So we shouldn't be surprised that when people throughout the world are being converted at Marian apparition sites and have been for the last 2 centuries, that Satan is going to ape that. He's going to imitate that. So as you hear these things, surely not only through content, but through perhaps, in some cases, adversarial temptations, there's going to be the implanting of bad thoughts. But remember what Satan can do, and also what he can't do. He can suggest, but he cannot enter the will. So like any other temptation, we're called to reject it. We're called to rebuke it. Which is why I think it would be appropriate to fast from watching this. I mean, human curiosity goes both ways, right? It can lead to deeper insights. It can also lead to things that are displeasing to Jesus. So clearly, if it was your mother or my mother, and Hollywood saw it fit to have demons issuing forth from her, we would not be pleased. Well, this is our mother, but it's also Jesus' mother. So I think out of love for Jesus, we want to reject the curiosity that would lead us to think about this more in terms of possibly entertaining it, or for, I think tragically, to support it. And you support it by going to see it.
So with that said, kind of thinking of like the curiosity and like what harm it could do if you were to go see this movie, like the images and the memory that will flash back. Can you speak on if I just wanted to go to see it because I love scary movies, like what harm can come from watching this movie?
Right. Well, the whole subject of horror movies aside, we won't deal with that here, because in a certain sense, I think we see some of those from the perspective of the Heavenly Father. He could ask the question, so for your entertainment, you like to see others, children of mine, being torn to shreds or being beheaded and things like that, but that's a more general comment. Specific to this, the French have an expression which is, God forgives quickly, but nature doesn't. And what it means is, you remember these things, whether you want to or not. Again, it's analogous to porn, right? The images have now entered. You've allowed them to enter. They're going to flash back. They're going to continue. And what's going to lodge them? What's going to, hit that link, so to speak? Every time you think of Mary. So you have to seriously discern, do you want that in your emotional, psychological memory? That every time you think of Mary or you hear of Fatima, or I would say a place like Medjugorje, you're going to think of this movie. Or are you going to fight the curiosity and I would suggest offering it as a fast? I mean, is it just a coincidence that's being released on Good Friday? So, I mean, I think, again, your generation, which excels in this, you can see the agenda. And I would encourage you to recognize the agenda and not give in to it. And that means don't put these thoughts into your mind. If we're going to use the what would Jesus do thing, would Jesus want us watching a movie where his mother is really being portrayed as a vehicle for Satan? And I think we all know the answer.
Right. And so in the later part of the trailer, Alice, the young girl, whenever her investigator is starting to doubt whether it's really the Blessed Mother, one thing that she says is, don't doubt her, doubt weakens faith. And you can kind of see the incentive behind this of, we already know that it's not the Blessed Mother, and she's trying to get everyone to believe that it is. And so she is portrayed to be deceived. And so can you just maybe comment on what the purpose of her, Alice, just trying to push at us, like, don't doubt her, this is really her, and then it really ends up being the enemy.
Right. Well, it really undermines authentic Christian faith and its reasonability. In other words, we have a rational support for what we believe in faith. In other words, it's not only reason alone, but everything that we hold as Christians, everything we hold as Catholics, and even a truly, properly investigated Marian apparition is packed with science. It's packed with criteria. It's packed with years of examination, both on the nature of the reported visionary, on the phenomena, which it has to be proven to be beyond human abilities, and on the spiritual fruits, which Satan can do temporarily, but he can't do exponentially, because he simply doesn't have that ability. So here again, it's kind of undermining, well, discern, right? We have to discern everything in the faith, and we do so with the proper use of our minds, and that's why there are no contradictions in the church. But it implies a manipulation, right? It's a setup again, and what it's telling the viewer is, doubt what you think is authentic, as if it's no more legitimate as what she's experiencing, which of course is a total debauchery.
Right. It kind of makes us Catholics who are strong in Marian devotion, it makes us look like we're like preaching the world, like, no, don't doubt her, and we're really on the bad side, kind of thing.
Right. I mean, that's the overall theme. It is well done in its perversity, because it's constantly, I mean, it's kind of what C.S. Lewis did with the screw tape letters. I mean, the more you understand Satan, the more, and his tactics, the more the Christian should be aware of it. That's very true about this movie. It is well done in its perverse effort to ill-associate Marian apparitions, to make the church look like it doesn't discern with reason. This idea that you give yourselves, there's a line in there about, give yourselves to Mary, give your souls to Mary, and then all of a sudden, well, no, you really gave it to Satan, which even in itself is nonsense, because if there was a fraudulency, God's not going to honor the gift of our soul to something that was all fake. So it's packed with discrediting, falsifying things of authentic Catholic faith, of the devotion to Mary. Where do we get our devotion to Mary? From Jesus. Where? From the cross. As his last gift, John 19, 25 to 27. It's not like a later Pope said, she's your mother. Jesus says, this is your mother. Ecce mater tua. Behold your mother. Good Christians imitate John the Apostle, and they take Mary into their homes, into their hearts. That's what the church has been doing since Jesus gave us Mary. Not for reasons of fraudulency, but because Jesus wants every human being to have not only a mother, but to have his mother.
With that part about, and at the very end of the trailer, when she's like trying to get everyone to give their souls to Mary, and then it ends up being demons and stuff. How does that relate to consecration to Mary? I know some people might not be familiar with that term, but what is consecration to Mary, and how do those two relate, and what is that, this trailer and this movie trying to imply with that?
Yeah, so consecration to Mary is where the Christian gives themselves in a special way, Our Lady freedom. We give ourselves to Our Lady so that she can use her powers of intercession to unite us to Jesus. There's two options. We can try to live our baptismal promises to Jesus on our own, or we can have the full intercession of Mary, who mediates Jesus to us to begin with. There was actually a wonderful book called Mary for Evangelicals, and it was a couple of Protestant theologians saying, look, you can't deny that we get Jesus through Mary. And so even terms like co-redemptrix or mediatrix are legitimate terms. And I thought that was very noble of them. So that's what we're talking about here. And Mary giving us the graces of Jesus just continues from Mary giving us Jesus. And so consecration is asking for Our Lady's full intercession to help us to be true to Jesus. When this movie is talking about, give your souls to Mary, but it's really Satan, what do you think that's going to do for someone thinking about, well, should I consecrate myself to Mary? They're going to have, red lights. Yeah, like, my gosh, I shouldn't do that. So how do I know it's not Satan? So that's part of the manipulation. But we can say, because the great saints and popes like St. John Paul II called us to, in freedom, give ourselves to Mary, which again is really giving Mary our yes to unite us to Jesus in ways that we can't do on our own. Mothers unite kids in ways kids cannot unite themselves. And when we give ourselves to Mary, she does that in ways we can't do on our own with Jesus. And that's why we have to not only try to fast from this movie, I would really encourage people to fast from this movie, even if they say, well, I wasn't going to go see it anyway. Well, have that intention for the people that are going to go see it out of curiosity, and for the people that will be damaged by it, because it's a straight up blasphemy. And so we handle it in peace, we continue. Marian consecration will continue. Marian apparitions will continue as long as Jesus wants them to happen. This movie's not going to stop that, but it's good to avoid things that distract us from the true gift of Mary. And that's what an authentic apparition is. It's Mary as a mediatrix in action. She's really coming to us, and every authentic message always says, put my son first, plain and simple.
Right. I know there are false apparitions that happen, and I'm sure other people are wondering, like, okay, well, if there's false apparitions, then isn't this movie just bringing those false apparitions to light, kind of thing? Does the devil really ever portray himself as our Blessed Mother? And like, I know Satan absolutely hates Mary, and so why would he in the first place try to, get people to go to Mary, you know?
Yeah. Well, let me use this analogy. It has to do with Hollywood theology, Casey. And so, for example, when the movie The Exorcist came out, it was a big hit. Fine, it just was so baseless, based on a true exorcism. Because in an authentic exorcism, the priest has total control. He doesn't go flying out windows, her head's not spinning around. And so the dramatic portrayal from Hollywood gave the idea that Satan is in control of exorcisms. So this is analogous too. Can Satan appear as Mary? Yes, he can, because he has that ability. But that's why the church discerns. That's why the church examines and looks to what's the level of integrity of the visionary, the reported visionary. Because typically, if it's a falsehood, you can see that in the first 3 pages of the messages, or the first couple days of the events. Secondly, are the events, the mystical events, similar to authentic apparitions, like Lourdes and like Fatima, places where we know Our Lady's appeared based on the fruits? And then thirdly, are people returning to Jesus in great numbers, returning to the prayer and sacramental life of the church? Well, if Satan's doing that, he's making his big mistake, right? So in terms of why does Satan do it? Oh, Satan loves to imitate Mary because Satan hates Mary even more than Jesus in this sense, because Mary is a creature. And as a creature, Satan can't stand that this creature, and dare I say this woman, I think Satan has a little sexist in him, is going to crush his head. But that's Genesis 3:15. The woman will crush the head of the serpent. So anything Satan can do to discredit his nemesis, right? It's God's greatest creature against God's most heinous creature. That's the fair play of God. He allows that to happen so that victory and merit can come forward. Satan's going to do it. So, for example, at the apparition of Lourdes in 1858, between the 13th and the 14th apparition, there were 30 cases of demonic possession on the location. Why? Because where Our Lady comes, Satan comes and tries to be the accuser and the deceiver. So that should not be surprising to us. We just don't want to give into it.
So you said that, Satan, he probably hates Mary more than Jesus, just because that she's a creature. And so why do you think Satan doesn't want us to pray to Mary? A lot of times, anytime you're drawn to ask for our Blessed Mother's intercession, there's always some spiritual warfare or something that Satan's trying to pull us away from. So why do you think that the evil one does this? Or?
Yeah, I think for 2 reasons. First of all, because of the pride of envy. I mean, it is perennially. You have to realize that the face-off between Mary and Satan was even predicted before, from the very beginning of time, when it was revealed to the angels in heaven that at some point in time, the second person of the Trinity would become man. And then you have the first non serviam, Satan saying, I will not serve. So it's also revealed that God the Son would become man through a woman. So he knows that his nemesis is coming in history. So this is kind of climactic for Satan. And he also is very aware of the power of Our Lady's intercession. Once again, in many exorcisms, priests have recorded that as they're exorcising demons, they speak to the power of Mary's intercession. There's been exorcists who have said things like, if, and it's always sarcastic, right? If you stupid humans knew the power of Mary as a co-redemptrix and mediatrix of all graces, you would be declaring, you would be professing this. And so it's always sarcastic, but it's revealing the truth, right? So Satan is very well aware of the power of Our Lady's intercession to keep us close to Jesus. And so it's strategically understandable that he's going to attack Our Lady as much as he can.
So as us faithful of like in the church, like what can we do in response to this movie?
Yeah. Well, as always, we can always offer reparation. So what's reparation? Reparation is an act of loving atonement from one member of the family for something that was done by another member of the family. So I think people who understand how offensive this movie is, how disrespectful it is, how it pierces the heart of Jesus that humans would even think about doing such an atrocity about his mother. That, first of all, as we mentioned before, fasting from the movie, not giving into human curiosity would be great. But there's always the further possibility of trying to do a more strict fast, trying to perhaps give up a meal or a common fast of bread and water, just any way that we can atone and offer that as a sacrifice, kind of in reparation for the ill of this movie. It can also, our reparation powerfully mitigate the ill effects. Because while the adversary is using this movie to discredit Our Lady, we're offering, personal sacrifices to offset that. And it's going to be a very powerful mitigating force, which ironically frees Our Lady to protect people from this false manipulation of who she is.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miravalle, for joining us and just shedding light on this movie. And I just want to encourage you, if you get brought up in conversation, discourage the people around you, your loved ones, not to watch this, not to support this, to fast from this. And if sharing this video helps, then go ahead and do that. Just whatever we can do to shut down this play from the evil one. And I just want to thank you guys for watching, and we're praying for you, and God bless.